Greg Ehrenberg from Odd Chopper here to bring you the best bets for Game 3 of the World Series. Series knotted at 1 apiece, and we were heading back to Philadelphia for Game 3. So as we come in, guys, do me a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And shout out to BetMGM, who are sponsoring today's show, and they have an offer to give you $200 for free, basically. No risk to you. All you are going to have to do is sign up at BetMGM by clicking on the link below in the description box. And then when you head on over to BetMGM, you place a $10 bet on any NBA money line. And as long as there's a three-pointer hit in that game, it pays out $200. And it's going to happen every single game this year, every game last year, every game of my lifetime has had a three-pointer hit in it. So it is no-brainer bet. Take advantage of this offer before it goes away. $200 for free from BetMGM. Now, before I get into Game 3, also a quick roundup of my bets for Game 2 of the series. Went 1-1 on those bets. The one that won was I had the Astros winning the game outright. The losing bet was I had Zach Wheeler over for a strikeout prop, and he largely just kind of sucked in Game 2 of the series. He had some bad luck in the early going of the game where he had an error that allowed a run to score, but ultimately he wasn't very good. He only had 3 strikeouts. Over-under for strikeouts was 4.5, so that one was a loser. 1-1 for the bets on Saturday. Hopefully, we could go undefeated on today's bets, which I'm going to get into right now. The best MLB bets for Game 3 of the World Series. For my first bet of the day, I'm taking the Astros to win outright, which I've actually picked them in for the World Series to win in total. I bet them in Game 2, betting them in Game 3 as well. And now when it comes to the Astros, more than anything today, I'm just fading Noah Syndergaard, who I think is pretty washed up at this point in his career. I was stunned the Phillies are starting him for Game 3 of the series. Now, I don't think he's going to work especially deep into the game, but even with that said, the Phillies don't have a great bullpen behind him. So let's break down some of the numbers here and why I'm on the Astros side. Syndergaard this year, 3.94 ERA in the regular season with a 4.43 expected ERA, 4.29 xFIP. So the 3.94 ERA was fairly mediocre, but the underlying numbers did suggest there's a little bit of good luck involved. And more so than anything, Syndergaard still carries some name value, but he's just not that guy anymore. His average fastball velocity is 94.5 miles per hour now. Not terrible, but this is a guy who in 2016 had a 99 average mile per hour fastball. In 2017, it was 100 miles per hour in the 7 starts that he had. So the stuff is pretty significantly weaker than it was back in his heyday, and as a result, the strikeout rate is way down. His K rate in the regular season was 16.8%. For his career, this is a guy who has a strikeout rate of 25%, and when he was at the peak of his powers, was right around 30%. So there's been a pretty significant drop-off in terms of the overall effectiveness of Noah Syndergaard, and I think the way the Phillies are trying to make up for that is just by having him probably pitch 3-ish or so innings today. But here's the issue. Behind him, their bullpen this year had a 4.27 ERA and a 3.71 FIP. So one of the weaker bullpens of any playoff team, and overall one of the teams that allowed some of the most runs of any bullpen in all of baseball. There's only a handful of teams that are worse bullpen ERA than the Philadelphia Phillies, whereas the Astros on the other side have an elite bullpen. So Lance McCullers on the mound for Houston. I'm about to talk more about him in a second, and I like him as a pitcher, but I really want to be fading Noah Syndergaard in this spot. I do not believe in him. I don't think the Phillies bullpen is great behind him. Good matchup for the Astros. I'm picking him to win tonight's game. For my other bet on tonight's game, I'm looking at over 5.5 strikeouts for Lance.
Like Sammy Watkins was another one we played, and of course he didn't hit, but the idea is that
Sure.
fantasy guys right at the bottom. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll look at our own DFS projections and I'll try to find somebody, like a 3K guy who's expected to boom, and then see what the odds are for that guy, and then we'll ladder it. We'll do anytime TD and then 2+ TDs in the hopes that he scores 1. At least you get, you're still making some profit. If the guy scores 2, then you're a fucking Discord legend. All right, it is the most exciting part of your week. That's right, Monday Night Football, as we have the Browns and the Bengals on no house advantage. So we appreciate you rolling with us. As always, Geoff is in the house. Most importantly, Mike's producing. I'm here as well, Eytan. So thank you first and foremost. Hit that thumbs up button, the subscribe button if you haven't already. And look at this one game slate that we have. So if you're new to No House Advantage, don't worry. Geoff and I are going to walk you through everything. We have a code that you can use as well. It's Stokastic, where we match your first deposit up to $50. And, we'll build. We have our free projections up there. We have our optimal lineups. Geoff, there's a ton of stuff that people can follow along with as you're making them money today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No House is, look, there's overlay up there as well. I believe the contest is 10K to first today. It's a good site to try out, guys. We do our shows around it, but there's a couple different ways to play. It's nice. You got the big multiplier as well on it for the versus the house contests. And the promo code, just free money right off the top. So I love breaking down these one game slates. This one, I don't love breaking them all down. Like when we get like Denver, Jacksonville,
right.
Those games can screw off. But this one, I love Joe Burrow. Should be a good game. Should be lots of yards here and opportunity with Jamar Chase out. So
that's another one too, right? And that's probably where we should begin here, which is, normally we're looking for some sort of angle. We're looking for something that maybe isn't as obvious, but let's be honest here. This is the big storyline. Now, it doesn't mean that the Bengals are going to lose by 30. It just means that from a DFS, and in this case, NHA standpoint, you have a key guy who's out. So does that just mean that it's Boyd and Higgins? One of the props I was looking at from betting was going over Joe Mixon's reception. So I don't know if you look now, how does this offense shift without having Jamar Chase out there?
Yeah, no. I still think they're going to throw the ball a ton. Joe Burrow's just been in really good form. You saw what he did with Tyler Boyd last week. So I'm not really expecting them to shift too much. I just think that it's just going to be different personnel involved. And your call with Joe Mixon could very much come true. Mike Thomas will obviously see the field, the other Mike Thomas more, right. But he's like the fourth guy in for a reason, right? So Mixon getting a little bit more involved, perhaps his routes go up. That would not shock me. I will say this. The player I'm most bullish on for this situation is Tyler Boyd. I think what you saw last week is that Tyler Boyd is that player.
Yep.
He was a number one wide receiver at one point for this team before Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins came to town. He's been here for a while. He's, as I've said, like 3 times already this week, he's an oversized slot receiver. You can move him around formations. I think they're going to do that. I think you pencil him in for 8 to 9 targets here. And I really think he's going to benefit the most. You got a Browns secondary, no Denzel Ward. They got to be focused on T. Higgins, who can absolutely just destroy them if they're not paying attention. I think Boyd will get moved around and potentially be the guy who actually ends up doing the damage. So I'm really bullish on all of these wide receivers, to be honest. But I just look at the props. I think it's a good week to get on Boyd because I think his props will go up from here. I still think they're a little bit too low. Our projections don't necessarily agree with me 100%.
No, I know, but I'm more inclined to agree with you, I think. Yeah. And it's not just because you and I are doing the show here for the next 19 minutes and I don't want it to get awkward.
That's right. And look, full disclosure, we have, Boyd for a slight under on yards and receptions, and Higgins to go over his no house at 74.5. I think you could see all 3 of the wide receivers go over receptions and yards. I really do. This is just not a good secondary from the Browns, and Joe Burrow's in good form. It's a close point spread, probably going to be throwing most of the game. I think you can look at creating lineups like this this week on No House Advantage.
All right. So that's one there. I think just looking at it right away, Mike Thomas is interesting. You mentioned him, 24.5 receiving yards. I know that earlier the books had him at 22.5. That has now shifted. I think he's up to 26, maybe 25, 26. So you still might be under it by a yard or two on the books. And I'm with you, right? You look at Boyd, his number at 61.5, 4.5 receptions. Higgins, 74.5, 5.5 receptions. And then you have Mike Thomas, who are those numbers low enough for you to target as far as, maybe a higher confidence play?
Yeah. I would. Again, I'm obviously bullish on Boyd. I like the over 4.5 on Boyd as opposed to the yards. He could be used more on short routes. I think you'll see him still probably go over the yardage, but it's kind of the same for Thomas. I think the 1.5 receptions, I know we have him projected for basically over 2 receptions, which, it's just, makes sense. And Mike Thomas, I think at the very least, what you'll see in this game, he may not get a ton of downfield targets. That's why I'm a little concerned about going over on yardage, but you will definitely see him in red zone packages. He can even catch a touchdown. He's probably a good touchdown prop tonight, to be honest. I know they tended to use him a little bit a couple of years ago, kind of in the red zone. That's where they were kind of bringing him in. I think he ended up like with 3 touchdowns that year. So he's been around this team. He knows the offense. He knows Zach Taylor. And I think that you'll probably see him, get 4 or 5 targets here and go over the reception prop. The yardage, again, there's a reason he's the 4th receiver. He's not an explosive guy. He's a bigger body. He could go over the yardage, but I would feel much better about going over the reception. I think that's where we're kind of leaning towards as well in the projections.
Now, as far as Mixon, you have 69.5 there. You also, just to, look at this here, you also have for Burrow, the typical passing yards, the touchdown, which is going to be 1.5, and then the interception. So unfortunately, and this is the one rub, right, that we have a lot of times with backs who are going to be targeted or can be targeted in the passing game. And without Ja'Marr Chase, sure, Mike Thomas jumps up, but Joe Mixon is a comfortable element, if you will, in this passing game, Geoff. So I don't know if going over and being bullish on the receivers and Burrow correlates to you then going under 69.5, or is it just a no play?
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, it's tough because Mixon's like, he's a high usage back. He's not coming off the field much. And if the Bengals get ahead in this game or Brissett throws like a quick pick or something like that, I mean, we could see Joe Mixon kind of like Devin Singletary last night.
Yeah.
Just go over this prop very quickly, unfortunately, so it could definitely be a no play, but at the same time, I mean, it's a bigger prop than we're seeing around the industry at 69.5, excuse me. And I think that going under it with like, if you're going to correlate it with like Burrow's over or Boyd's over or just pairing those two, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is kind of, Cleveland getting Myles Garrett back. You figure they'll be a little bit better down the middle, stopping the run. And maybe the Bengals just have a plan for Mixon to get involved. So not a must play by any means, but I would definitely lean under, and I would definitely be okay mixing it in with some of my over lineups with like Boyd and Higgins involved.
Anything with Burrow that you want to touch on here? I mean, the passing yards clearly is going to correlate with everything that you talked about with Boyd and Higgins. The passing touchdowns, not as much, but definitely there's going to be something there. And then the interception. And look, I think that there's an argument to be made clearly that you and I think me and others anticipate Joe Burrow throwing the football a lot. So that just with volume comes the opportunity for it to be picked, tipped, what have you, pressure on Burrow. So I don't know if that jumps out or you just want to keep it correlated with the passing yards and basically build that stack.
So Burrow's been a lot better late. So that's the only thing. Now that at the same time, like, I don't think this is a bad play to go over. I wouldn't play the under here. That's for sure. We do have a road game. It's division. So it's either an over or leave it for me. If you do play the over, this is a prop I really like correlating with the Mixon under, because if Burrow throws an interception, the Browns are probably getting the ball real quick. Maybe they're even scoring a pick six, or they're just scoring quickly. It's putting the Bengals back on their heels. That's less rushes for Joe Mixon, most likely. So if you're going to go the Mixon under, I really like correlating it with a Burrow interception. I think if those two, if that first one with the interception happens, it just makes your play on the Mixon one stronger. So that's the only thing I'd really throw out. I think it probably makes all the passing overs stronger too, because again, you're just putting your team in a situation where you're probably going to be behind. You're giving the other team some points and you got to throw the ball more. So I don't mind it at all. Not a must play just because I respect the way Burrow's playing, but it's a road game division and we have him. It's a pretty strong projection. He's projected for 0.8. It's a stronger projection than Brissett's, who just doesn't throw much. So
you're right. And I mean, I think that's going to probably correlate into Brissett here when we get to him. But I do want to flip to Chubb only because the books had him earlier in the day. I know both Ben and myself got in on two different videos, 82.5, I think it was, something like that. That has shot up, and NHA has it at 91.5, which I would bet is still probably under the adjusted number at the books. But the Bengals, they lost a couple of guys, right? DJ Reader goes down, like that interior defense, couple of linebackers. All of a sudden now you can run on Cincinnati pretty handedly. I would think that there's got to be a number for you, right, Geoff, where you say, no, I'm getting off the Chubb train, if you will. But 91.5, as high of a number as that is, still doesn't seem too high for Chubb in this particular game.
I mean, what else are the Browns going to do, right? Like, I mean, like Njoku's out. I mean, the Bengals have pretty good corners. They've certainly been really good at just like limiting the outside. Amari Cooper's slowed down a little bit. This just feels like they're going to run the ball regardless of the situation. Like Nick Chubb is going to be the guy. Kareem Hunt also like about to get traded. It's a big prop. And I think that you've got to look at it two ways. Either you're just saying it's too big and I'm just going to go with the projections and it's, this is too much. The Bengals are favored. I would probably be on the other side though. Again, I don't have a strong take on either of these running backs, but I do have a strong take on what the Browns are going to do. And that's going to really try and win this game on Nick Chubb. He has been there. He's basically the only thing keeping this team from being like really terrible, in my opinion.
Yep.
And I think they're going to lean on him a ton. And I think you're right. It's a home game for them. It's kind of do or die. I think Nick Chubb could even come out and just give them the lead here. And again, if that does happen, because, it has happened before. I mean, I can't remember who they played a couple of weeks ago and it happened. He just came, I think it was the Chargers. He just came out, demolished them on a couple drives, put the Chargers back, and then Herbert had to throw the ball all over the yard and Browns ended up losing because they're the Browns. But I think a similar formula could be here where Chubb comes out, gives them a lead, and, the Browns do their Browns thing. But it's a good prop to correlate with the Mixon overs or the Burrow overs. I mean, so it's a big one. We do have them projected as a slight underplay, but I mean, you've got to play this as like, we're not just taking one prop. We're trying to correlate 7, 8 different props together here, 7 or more. And, you've got to pick your spots. If you're taking all overs on the Bengals, you think the volume's going to be there. Why is the volume there? Maybe Joe Burrow's throwing a pick. Maybe Nick Chubb is taking control of this game early on and making Joe Burrow throw. So I'm fine with the Chubb over. Absolutely.
I'm telling you, man, I think the beauty of Nick Chubb, and I feel like we've had this conversation at least one other time here with Chubb specifically. Derrick Henry is a guy because you need the circumstance. You need a quarterback who is not Jalen Hurts, right? Who is not Josh Allen. You need somebody who is very willing and able to, or willing, I would say, to say, yes, take the football, whoever's behind me. So Cleveland is one of those situations where you can still, like, you're down 10 with 8 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. You're not thinking about some sort of 2-minute drill where you can extend that and get down the field. You're down 14, Geoff, with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You're still running Nick Chubb. So he's one of those rare guys where I think regardless, like, you're almost bulletproof to circumstance. Look, you're down 30 in the fourth quarter. That's a different story. I don't think that's going to be the case here, but that I think is a big plus for a guy like Chubb, because you're like 95% or like what you said is right 95% of the time. But then there's that 5%, which will get fill in the blank guy, whoever it is playing on that team with a better quarterback. But in this case, even it's almost like fail safe with that extra small 5%, because when they're down, they're still going to run Nick Chubb. So I think absolutely. Now, I wonder, though, is this the number one contrarian play, you think, to go under Chubb? Like, is over Chubb, do you think, going to be the most popular play across the board?
That's the thing. I don't think it is, just because of how big the prop is. Like, I think most people are aware, it's a bigger prop than what we're seeing in a lot of spots. And it's, anytime you get a running back that needs almost 100 yards to go over, I think people get a little wavery, right? So I don't think so. I think that people will probably be, I think if you're looking to really, honestly, if you're looking to be contrarian, probably looking to take an under on T. Higgins here is probably where you would go. I think most people, again, a little bit not as bullish on me on Tyler Boyd. People will probably play the Mike Thomas over because it's so low, but like Higgins is the one. Wow. Okay. He's the number one. He's going to get all the targets now. Chase is out. So if I was looking for a contrarian play, it would actually be going under on Higgins and then taking the overs on like Boyd and maybe even just Boyd. I mean, playing for, and I think in that scenario too, like maybe you could even look to go an over on Mixon and Boyd and say that's how the Bengals get ahead. The Browns are bad. Boyd and Mixon do most of the work. It's a little bit slower paced game than we've seen. And then, like Higgins is just out there kind of getting a few targets, but doesn't get that big play. The Bengals don't throw much late in the game, and that's just it. And we get like a boringish, like 23-17 game kind of thing. So I think Higgins is the guy who will be very popular on the over if I had to predict. I'm not saying it's a bad play. You could certainly just go him very high up too, eat the chalk, and then could be contrary in other places. But that's the one where I really think that the field will get on here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think after talking it through, it does make a little more sense. I don't know. The other reason, though, that I bring up Nick Chubb as far as a possible popular play is because when you look at everybody else, and only I would argue name recognition is keeping Amari Cooper in this conversation. By the way, I love the witch on screen right, because when it's on the other side, and I'm talking to basically Mike and you because nobody else even cares about me pulling behind the curtain here. But when it's on the other side, I keep thinking it's my mic. Like I keep thinking something's wrong with my mic. So I have to like grab it or move it. Like, is it moving? What the hell's going on here? So it's Halloween's fucking me up, Geoff.
So, I mean, as I said before the show, it's fucking us all up today. I mean, it's on a Monday. My kids have got up at like 6. I cannot wait for this day to be over. I'm not going to lie.
All right, real quick. If you were to build, like, this is the old radio trick where if you're doing a 4-hour radio show 5 days a week, you need to kill time, right? Because radio hosts are lazy, especially in Philadelphia. So we have this running gag as far as like a Mount Rushmore. What's your Mount Rushmore of cereals? Right, and you know, you can get 100 people to call in over the next 2 hours. Lucky Charms. So if you were building a Mount Rushmore of Halloween costumes, all time Halloween costumes, what's the George Washington? What's the cornerstone of a Mount Rushmore Halloween costume? I could see Mike already typing in.
Of costumes, man. I mean, yes. Wow. Okay. That's a tough one. I am not like a big costume guy.
Me neither.
Geez. Like, I always give real respect to the people who like do their own like monster makeup, like the blood and guts. Like,
like the Thriller stuff.
It's Halloween. You're not getting like dressing up as Iron Man. This isn't a Comic-Con, It's Halloween. Dress up as like a dead person, Frankenstein. So I think that's like the standard. Like you put your effort into dressing up as like a ghoul or a zombie or something, or a monster. That's to me, those people deserve the most respect. They're getting to the core of what we're doing here. It's All Hallows Eve. It's not like 2020 Comic-Con with like Spider-Man or something. So that's to me, that's the pinnacle. If you're putting the effort in, that's where you got to go.
I love it. Now, all honesty here, okay? Because my kid isn't old enough to answer this question, but are you putting the time and effort into creating your kids' costumes, or are you being a hypocrite and heading to the local Walmart, what have you, and saying, all right, here's your Batman costume this year?
One of my kids was Batgirl last year, so I'm absolutely out of, I got no chair to stand on here.
Because I would be surprised, Geoff, right? If you were like, no, I sat down there and I sewed this damn costume together for the last 6 hours.
I take my kids to the costume store and I say, you pick out whatever you want. There's no limit here. You do it, you pick. It's the one time they get to pick whatever. So I don't have to do any more work. And they love it. They're just as happy. So
I love it. Let me get back. By the way, Mike throwing the French maid out there for the ladies.
Yeah,
exactly.
Fair. That's
exactly.
Fair.
Mike goes immediately to like the NC-17 answer, not the fact that like 96% of the people on the planet who celebrate Halloween are under 14. But, that's neither here nor there. So the thing about, I don't even know how the hell we got into this, but the thing about Nick Chubb, what I was saying is that outside of name recognition alone, Amari Cooper, maybe you've got, Jacoby Brissett, who I don't know if a lot of people even want to play, let alone fade. You've got David Bell and Harrison Bryant in there. I just don't know if you're going to get much outside of fading here, right?
Yeah.
David Bell, 19.5 receiving yards, 1.5 receptions. Amari Cooper might be 63.5. I don't know if that's too high.
It feels a little high. Cooper can do it. And he had a nice run to start the year, but it feels like, no Njoku to worry about.
Yep.
Even Harrison Bryant's props are up here. It's hard to know where to go here for for the Cleveland passing game. I mean, if you want to be ultra contrarian, you go over Brissett passing touchdowns. You go there is an opportunity here. You go over Cooper 5.5 receptions. Maybe you go like under Chubb too. You can get pretty wild here with the Cleveland passing game, and it's a pretty thin play. We have Jacoby Brissett under passing touchdowns, 1.5 passing touchdowns as a very strong play. And that's one I would feel good about just eating. That's probably going to be a popular play too, to be honest, along with like the Higgins over. But look, I mean, whenever you have a low sentiment passing offense like this, it's always room on the other side for like very, very low ownership. So again, you got 10 lineups. I would absolutely be thinking about making one where you're throwing in a Cooper over with a Brissett, like over yards or over touchdowns, maybe even both, and then pairing it with a Chubb under, because if Chubb gets, if the Browns get behind early, maybe Chubb just gets, stuffed a few times and the Bengals start to put a little bit of a hurt on. We just see a quicker pace, faster pace offense in the second half. It's not how likely this game is going to go, but it's the NFL. I mean, look, we had, the Panthers and the Falcons combined for like 99 points, whatever they had last week. So last Sunday.
Yeah. And think about this. Last 9, the over is 7-1-1 for Cincinnati in this series versus Cleveland with an average of 53 points per game. Cleveland has proven that they can score points on the ground with Chubb. Now, he's not here as far as on here, but he's definitely going to be out there. And I think what helps is you mentioned Kareem Hunt, right? Like if I'm Cleveland, I'm doing everything possible to showcase Kareem Hunt without hurting Nick Chubb's carries, right? Because I want to make sure that I can tell team X, team Y, team Z, hey, man, this dude just put 2 touchdowns down against the Bengals last night. You're going to want to trade for him. So I think that helps the offense too. And
I always feel like, much like DJ Moore yesterday, guys who are about to get traded, I feel like they play well because they want to be like, look, like I'm good, trade for me. So
get me the hell out of here.
Yeah, get me the hell out of here. I mean, this could definitely be a spot for Kareem Hunt. I don't think the Browns will sit him. I mean, I think if we get news like that, obviously don't go over on Nick Chubb. But
sure,
there's no news like that. I could definitely see the Browns just giving him his full allotment of snaps, and Hunt really taking advantage today. So it's a good point. Like we always talk about the Browns as Chubb, but like this is kind of a split backfield. So another area where, like the Chubb under probably comes into play.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly what I was going to say, just to wrap that in there. And you made the point, I think, of all points, which is if you were going to go contrarian with Chubb, you do kind of have that in the background. And again, it's a point that you're not going to have every single person, especially impact person, available to you on no house advantage. So I think part of the strategy, and you just heard Geoff lay that out there with why an under Chubb could make sense if you were going that way, is because you have a guy in Hunt who, again, A, is not on NHA, but B, will be out there and heavily involved. All right, my friend, what's got a better chance of happening here? All right, let me throw this out. I'm going to throw 3 different things out at you, all right? What's got a better chance of happening? The Cleveland defense. Oh, look at that, by the way. So you have everything that you need to know, including another NHA show coming up right now with Emac and Terry. The Cleveland defense scoring twice at plus 9,500. All right. Not special teams, but defense. Browns just in Joe Burrow's face left and right all day. That's one. My guy, your guy, friend of putting for dough, Patrick Rogers at an 80-1 long shot, who is on freaking fire right now, mind you, Geoff, winning at Mexico, or the Philadelphia Phillies winning 3 of the next 4 and knocking off the Houston Astros in the World Series.
Oh, man. What are the odds on the Phillies doing that?
The exact series odds, I'll get that to you. So that would be 3 of the next 4. They would win 4-1, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, the series 4-1 is probably good. It's probably going to be better.
I mean,
oh, here you go. 4-1 Phillies is only plus 650. Oof.
Wow, that's short.
It.
Yeah, you can't take that.
No.
Well, we'll just compare the first 2 because I think it's pretty interesting. Myles Garrett is back for the Browns. and it's a home game and it's a big one. I could see them getting a quick 2 defensive scores. Is just so hard to predict. I'll go with my guy, Patrick Rogers.
9,500.
Even though Patrick Rogers is like in his 10th year on the PGA Tour and still hasn't won, we're still going to go there. I probably the edge is with Garrett, but Patrick Rogers is my guy. So he's going to win at some point. We'll go with that as the 80-1.
I love it. I love it. Jeff, always a pleasure, my friend, at the Fantasy Grind. I know you're going to be back with Pete on Thursday, with me on Friday. So we have 3 days a week here for you for No House Advantage on the NFL side. And the beauty of it is don't go anywhere, because Mike is sticking around with Emac and Terry for the NHA NBA show tonight. Thumbs up, subscribe, Stokastic. $50 will match your first deposit over at NHA. Have a great night. Go Patrick Rogers.